Today, Retina IIIc, small c. This is another one of my countdown cameras, and it's one that I hadn't taken into account. So, although I thought I only had 8 more to do, I'll only have 8 more to do after this one, probably, depending on how poor my accounting has been. Problems with this one? Well, the viewfinder is exceptionally hazy, very hard to see through. And the shutter, it'll work on the faster speeds, but the slower speeds, no, it really doesn't want to know. So it's certainly going to need servicing. If I look in from the back, I can see that the diaphragm blades are quite oily. So the normal business, strip it right down, clean everything, lubricate, put back together and send it on its merry way. I'll start by removing the top cover. Put something through the fork of the rewind, spin that off with my fingers, no problem at all. And I'll start parceling up these parts to go into the cleaner, I think. As usual, anything with paint on it doesn't go through the ultrasonic cleaner. Or springs, not because it'll damage them, but because they're likely to end up getting lost. 2 screws on the top cover at this end. Chrome plated brass, easily damaged. 1 at this end. Top cover should lift off. Let's have a quick look at this. Looks fairly clean inside. The meter dial's not loose, bit sticky. That top cover should clean up well. No broken glass. That's always a bonus. Back to the camera. What do we want off here? Well, we can have the rangefinder off for a start. So 2 screws. Let's have a quick look at this. Yeah, very hazy. Still, that'll clean up. It's, this end of the cam, we'll start here. Off with the strap lug. This is a later type of 3C, so it has the chrome trim plate, top and bottom of the body casting, not just the polished alloy body edges that the earliest examples have, which means it'll probably be less problem to get the leatherette off the base of the camera. And I'll take apart this rewind, separate those pieces with a cleaner. At this end, 2 screws hold the exposure meter in place. And that meter can lift off. The meter looks like it works quite well, so I'm not expecting any great problems there. The shutter release button can come off. I'm already sorting some of these things into the wrong container, so let me just backtrack here a bit. Okay, carrying on. Film release button, that can come off. The spring I'll put aside. This shaft here can come off. That's the guide post for the film release button. I'll use my special tool to remove that. The remaining screw from the strap plug. Lift that up, make sure there's no shims underneath. If there are, just take note of them and don't lose them. The second screw from the little hold down bracket here. Again, check under there. Yes, there's a little shim washer there. And I'll want to keep that carefully. Here's my shutter cocking rack. I'll need to have a look at that. It looks quite clean, this camera. I'll hold this up to the light. Looks like a full complement of teeth. Doesn't look like there's any problem there. I'll know better once I've cleaned it. It's very hard to judge minor distortions of teeth while it's covered in grease. That chrome trim plate can come off. The shutter release shaft here, I'm checking to see if there's a spring down inside the body here, but there isn't. I'll lift this out. This is two pieces. It's got a little bush running on that shaft. This is all very sticky with old grease. I'll remove this little circlip from this lock lever here and lift off the spring, put that aside. This screw from the release lever, remove that, and likewise put the spring aside. The film advance here, I'm going to unscrew that screw at the top with a modified screwdriver. And start taking these pieces off. This is all sticky. That grease has gone quite dry and sticky. More like a glue than a lubricant. Two screws. Now that's a support. That shoulder screw supports the rack, keeps it in firm contact with the gear on top of the film advance. That was slightly loose. Now that can lead to failure of the shutter cocking rack if that screw's loose, because the rack isn't supported firmly. It'll flap about. The gear teeth are not aligned where they should be, and you get failure. Okay, so the top of the camera we're done. At the base of the camera, two screws here hold the tripod socket surround in place. Now these are chrome plated brass, quite fine and easily damaged. You've got to be careful with those. Tripod socket surround lifted off easily, that's nice. There's the back catch cover and its return spring, all in good condition. Leatherette patch here on the advance lever. Someone has carved, looks like the letter L on there. Not sure why someone would think that would be a clever thing to do, but people do these things. See if I can get my scalpel underneath there. Yes, not enthusiastic. Okay, that's all. No casualties. 3 screws hold the film advance lever in place. And that click sound was the film advance shaft unwinding, effectively losing its return tension. Now the leatherette, will it come off nicely? Not expecting any great fights. Oh, it is a bit stuck down. It's making cracking sounds as I get the leatherette peeling away. That suggests that it's the original adhesive and that it's in good condition, because that would be fairly brittle. Of course, if it's the original adhesive, it means that no one has been in here since the camera was first made. Yeah, it's well stuck. I can see a couple of Zeiss bumps here on under that leatherette. They're fairly subtle. Yeah, some of this leatherette's looser than other bits. Knowing how hard you can lever the leatherette is something that you can only learn from experience, really. So that popped away with a great crack there. It means that a piece was holding it very firmly and the rest of it was effectively not holding it at all. Okay, we're well past the halfway mark now, so the leatherettes are behaving themselves so far. If you end up with a crack or a cut in a leatherette, don't be overly concerned about that. Once it's all glued back down, often injuries of that sort are completely invisible. it's very uncommon for me to have a leatherette that's so damaged that I can't get it back on the camera and have it looking good. Stuck well right here. And it's stuck through here. So I've got a patch through here that's very well stuck. And with that, that's it. That's it, it's off in one piece. No cuts, no scratches, all good. Right, the chrome trim plate from the base of the camera. Let's get that off. This is a short screw in this position. That's quite rare. Normally they haven't bothered doing that. They've just used one the same length as the others. But because it's short, you might as well put it back there when you reassemble things, because being just hit a file size limit there. Because that screw's short, it's only doing half a job really. Alright, should be the screws out of there. It's just stuck down. Yeah, it's coming off. Put that to one side. Gather those 7 screws up. Put them through the cleaner with the other stuff. Alright, I'm going to take out our lock lever, our release lever, and recover the spring from the release lever. I take that off now because it saves it from becoming damaged in the cleaning process. It's a bit fiddly to get that out, but it's worth taking the extra time, because if you lose or damage that spring, it's not good. 3 screws hold the tripod socket in place. These look a little bit rusty. That's quite normal. Probably means the camera's been put down on a damp surface at some time. There's our tripod socket. That's just the little insert from the bottom of the film cassette chamber. At this end I want that rewind button off. That came off easily. Right, so we have 1 screw here holding the sprocket and the sprocket shaft together. Lift out the sprocket shaft, The sprocket, I'll put it to one side, that doesn't go through the cleaner. Film Advance stuff at the top of the camera is now floating loose. There's the bush from the top of the Film Advance. Here's the clutch assembly. We'll split that apart. At the base of the camera again, unhook that spring from the rewind button catch. Remove the shoulder screw that holds the spring and catch in place. Put the spring to one side. The catch can go through the cleaner. 3 screws here hold the advance shaft in place. If I can see them. These screws are not loose, that's good. It's not uncommon for them to be a bit loose. Right, so there's our Film Advance shaft. I'll recover the 3 screws and the shaft. That's quite sticky with dried grease. Open the back of the camera, get out our plastic take-up spool and the metal bush from the base of the take-up spool, which can go through the cleaner. Right, the front door, 2 screws. Let's get a suitable screwdriver. Hinge pin screw from the top. Hinge pin screw from the bottom. There will be anywhere between 1 and 4 spacer washers, shim washers at those hinge pin positions. Here's one from the base. And there's a thicker one from the top. So that's our door off. Not much to go wrong with doors, as long as the leatherettes are firmly placed. Check the button to make sure that's free. This one's a bit sticky, I might pull that apart and clean that, but not yet. We're not done disassembling this stuff. Okay, next, need to remove the shutter and lens assembly. Taking my lens spanner, shutter wrench, whatever you want to call it. There's our shutter assembly. I'll put that with its retaining ring to one side, deal with that separately. Here's the camera body. Okay, so starting at the top, we'll remove this screw here. That's the coupling screw for the rangefinder. This plate mounts to the inner helical, and that has the arm on it that couples to the rangefinder. And it's always awkward to wriggle out. It's an odd bit of design work, that. Now I need to mark alignment marks between the outer helical and the focus scale ring, so I know where the focus scale ring goes back, and between the outer helical and the inner helical, so that I know where those go back together correctly. So normally, if the camera will allow it, I align my focus so that the inner and outer helical are flush with each other. Sometimes you can't achieve that. I'll scribe 2 lines across the bottom here. And 1 line at the top. Now I know where all those 3 components align. I can take these 2 screws out, 4 screws out, sorry, that hold our focus scale ring in place. These screws are quite small, you need to be careful not to damage them and careful not to lose them. This little shroud on the front here supports the gear at the front of that shaft there. So I'll get those 2 screws out. They're chromed brass, easily damaged. Right, so there's the shroud with its 2 screws. Here's the little gear and shaft. Earlier cameras will have another support piece in here. Right, so that focus scale ring will lift off now. We're down here dealing with the focus mount really. The 4 black screws hold the bellows to the back of the front standard. They're certainly not over tight. All rusted in. The 4 nickel plated flathead or countersunk screws hold the retainer ring in place. Retainer ring should lift off. It's all nice and sticky with filthy old grease. The inner and outer helical should lift out. It's catching on those screws there, are they? That just interferes with those 4 black screws. This one's just a bit stiff to come out. Okay, so the inner and outer helical, they're very gooey. I'll just unscrew those. Get the last of those black screws out of there. And there's quite a lot of grease visible in here. There's somebody who was exceptionally generous greasing that. So now we have 4 screws, nickel plated round head screws. They hold the focus mount into the front standard. And that focus mount should lift out. That's very greasy. I have to scrape the worst of that out before I put it through the cleaner, otherwise it'll just foul up everything. Right, so this whole arrangement here I want out of the body. 2 screws top and bottom, 2 at the base. This little screw at the back holds the bracket in that holds the transfer shaft in. A little shaft that couples to the shutter cocking rack takes the action through to the front of the camera. We can have that out, and that's never a major issue. These screws, I might need to give them a thump. Yeah, looks like it. And the ones at the top, are they any better? Oh, that's going to come loose. That one's not. Okay, hammer time. Right, nice heavy duty screwdriver on the top there. Applying plenty of torque between finger and thumb. Give this a couple of sharp taps. Didn't work. Again. Yep, it's free. And at the base of the camera, the same deal. Yep, it's coming loose. Bit gummy, that one. Might be adhesive or corrosion. Adhesive probably. This one. That's coming loose. Resist the temptation to give them an extra heavy thump, because all they end up doing is compressing the body, which will make the action of the sliding front section very stiff, which is not desirable. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Those bellows were a bit stuck to the back, so that slides out. There's our shaft with a gear on it, a little bracket. The body casting, otherwise empty now, ready for cleaning. And the front section here. Right, so we depress the shutter release so I can get that little sleeve out. Depress the two buttons and slide the front section through. That releases, I can recover the two springs, the two buttons. And here, this piece, the lens standard, unhook that return spring, unscrew that. That spring's a little bit bent by the looks of it. Two screws here. This is quite sticky. It needs to be very free running, otherwise the shutter release doesn't return correctly. Two screws and this chrome finger here, and that is our camera stripped down. These pieces need to be cleaned manually, and of course I've got to scrape the worst of the grease out of this, and that can go into a container with these and away to the ultrasonic cleaner.